There are way too many people on the internet who are saying, this shit happened to me. I was there. I had vivid dreams. I have anxiety to certain sounds. I have an odd fear of water. Welcome to Grace's Crimes. My name is Grace, and my channel is centered around true crime of passion, panic, and honestly pure foolishness based on my research. I'll share my opinions at the end. And if you want any further information, I encourage you conduct your own research, form your own conclusions and theories, okay? Everything I'm sharing is on public media sources. If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, please hit subscribe, and you'll be the first to know about true crime updates on this channel. I've had a very long week. We lost the coolest auntie known to man. She is the reason why I do true crime in the first place. No child should be learning about murder, death, doom, and destruction at a young age, but here I am. And it led me on very interesting career paths to this day. So every episode will be me just talking to her, and you guys can follow along. So today I want to talk about something that has been on my mind for a couple of years. You know, you go on TikTok and you hear these stories, but this one kind of like turned a light bulb on in my brain. And it's about the G.A.T.E program, or as I knew it to be, gifted and talented. Let's start from the very beginning, okay? Imagine you're a kid in the 1990s, right? And people are telling you that you're super smart and you're super gifted. And because of that, you're taken out of class and brought into another room where you start to do like puzzles, or maybe you have headphones on and you do like a hearing test. Maybe you play a little Oregon Trail on a really old looking computer. Sometimes your teacher was there, but most of the time it wasn't your teacher. It was someone else that you can't seem to recall. And now we are, so lovingly saying, ha ha ha, the gifted and talented to ADHD pipeline. It was funny until somebody said on TikTok that it actually might have been a CIA front for psychic training. I find a lot of things to be funny, but this shit ain't. And the reason why is because I was one of those gifted and talented kids. I hold that very near and dear. I think it was super cool. My mom tells everyone, oh, yes, she was gifted and talented. I didn't realize they were trying to do some damn Stranger Things / Angel, Dark Angel. If you're from the early 2000s, you remember that show with Jessica Alba. It was very along the lines of Stranger Things. There was kids. They were in a lab. They had psychic abilities, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so today we're going to dig into the G.A.T.E conspiracy, CIA, gifted kids, and psychic experiments. So get a drink, buckle up. So let's start from the beginning. Okay, so what the hell is G.A.T.E? So in every state, it seems to have been called something different, but G.A.T.E essentially stands for Gifted and Talented Education, right? And it was a legitimate U.S. school initiative from like the 70s or so, which was to provide advanced learning for high IQ kids. The focus was mainly on enrichment, like advanced math, critical reading, creative tasks. And former students are starting to come out because in the 80s and 90s, there were some extra add-ons like breaking codes, learning Russian, using meditation tapes with crazy ambient sounds. I recall some hearing tests, but I don't think that I realized they were other types of tests. People are saying to go online and listen to some gateway tapes, but I'm also hearing folks are getting triggered and are having major anxiety. And I don't think I need that this week. So I passed on that. However, I do remember puzzles and things of that nature. There's a TikToker on here, and her name is Anna Mills. And she has this like binder where she has worksheets entitled Codes to Crack. And it's like Morse code and Russian lessons, and then other like papers about aliens and outer space and other culture, right? She recalls, and other students recall, mantras and like audio experiments where they had these meditation style voiceovers, ocean waves, and kind of guided them to what people are saying were to enter an altered state, astral projection, things of that nature. For some of us, we don't recall any of this. Like there's an actual thing going on where it's like, I was in the gifted intelligence program, but I don't really remember much. I feel like I almost have a memory gap from that time period or an amnesia. I remember the hallway, but I can't recall the lessons. In my personal experience, it's kind of the same. I remember being pulled out of class, being brought into another room with maybe one or two other students. I lived in a very major city in the Northeast at the time, and we went into another room, and it was, I don't know where this room even was. I remember the hallway, and I remember being on a computer looking at things about the ocean and dolphins. Dolphins are known to have supposed psychic abilities or supposed great memory for animals and communication with high pitch frequency. So just talking about it right now makes me wonder, because that's a very vivid memory, is like learning about dolphins and their high pitch frequencies on these computers. I remember like there being shapes. I can't recall what they're called, but they were like shapes that we played with. It's so interesting because in doing research, I'm like, I wasn't doing that in the classroom with my other friends. I was doing that in another room. I was somewhere else. Other people are like, oh, we were all neurodivergent, and that's why they chose us in this program. I know a lot of folks think that people who are autistic or neurodivergent have other parts of their brain that are turned on. If you're neurodivergent or think you're neurodivergent, people usually try to say that we are psychic or that we have a sixth sense of sorts. We have a heightened sense. So it's really interesting versus like a neurotypical person. Either we have a heightened sense of smell, sight, sound, things of that nature. So let's go into like the CIA connections and the parallels, right? So CIA had something called the Stargate Project that went from like 1975-ish to about 1995, right? And it studied psychic abilities and remote viewing. And in the declassified Gateway Program files that just came out, it shows experiments using nonverbal audio patterns, right? Brainwave techniques, consciousness to altering stimuli. A lot of this supposedly comes from MK Ultra confirming that CIA mind control experiments were used from the 50s to the 70s and then morphed into these more subtle programs that were geared towards the American education system. Part of that had to do with the fear that we were behind in terms of like weaponry. Now let's talk about a little more about the program. It was established under Richard Nixon in the 1970s under the Education Amendments of 1974, and then expanded during the Reagan-era from 81 to 89, where there was a huge push for like excellence in education after the A Nation at Risk report from 1983. Reagan really heavily supported school choice and elite education pipelines, which is bullshit. But anyway, that included these gifted programs. We're gonna blame Donald Trump. We're gonna blame Ronald Reagan for this nonsense. He's the most plausible crossover point for when this was going on between the CIA psychic Stargate program, which was like kind of overlapping with this whole education elitism. Most people link it to Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush Sr. He was also a former CIA director, so while he was in office, both of those programs overlapped. And so it kind of points to him supporting and at least continuing to support whatever the hell this was. Were they training us as little kids to be weapons? I don't know. I really don't know. Then there's like more personal accounts. Some people mention like psychic testing tools, like Zener cards and altered state tasks in school settings. Some people talk about having wire or like string, balls of string that were wrapped together that they were supposed to untangle either with their hands or try to do it with their mind. I don't recall any mind things, but again, I don't recall much of this program except for all of these damn audio tests. So again, I going into that, memories are very vague, fragmented, or very missing for people who are in these programs. And there's very uncanny parallels with CIA memory suppression techniques. So former GATE students have actually asked, like, where we test subjects, because they are uncovering declassified projects like human paranormal capabilities. And while there's no concrete proof, there's no concrete proof that ties a GATE program to the CIA, the parallels are a little bit much. Everything can't be a damn coincidence, okay? Let's talk about fact and fiction here. Here's what we do know. We know that the GATE programs definitely existed, and we know that they featured advanced problem solving tasks. There are way too many people on the internet who are saying, this shit happened to me, I was there, I had vivid dreams, I have anxiety to certain sounds, I have an odd fear of water, I've had a near-death experience. Again, coincidences, I don't know. I'm just telling you what we know. Another thing we do know is that the CIA did explore psychic phenomenon like the Stargate Project, which I mentioned earlier, which yielded zero actionable intelligence, and that ended in the 90s. The other thing is that audio meditation and consciousness tech were used in a lot of different classified experiments, okay? Now, why people believe it is because the government be lying, okay? Y'all be lying all the time. We're paying taxes to Lord knows what. Things are coming out now that people said wasn't true 20, 30 years ago. The man who was screaming on the corner about XYZ, he don't look so damn crazy now as we get older, am I right? There's a lot of mistrust, right? Especially after like the MK Ultra revelations and just like all of the weird shared memories. That probably is the biggest part. People want to say, all right, devil's advocate, maybe it was a legitimate program that created problem solving and advanced skills, for the more higher IQ kids. Maybe our teachers were just introducing puzzle codes and audio tasks, that were unusual at the time. And yeah, sure, the CIA had psychic, experiments, but that doesn't mean that they were pushing it in public schools. It's just total coincidence. So here's a question. Was this shit real? Like, was GATE a secret CIA psychic pipeline? Do I believe that? I'm gonna let you guess what you think I believe. I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts. What the hell do you guys remember from the GATE program? Were you in the GATE program? Was it called something different in your state? And most importantly, do you believe that our very trusting government would have ever done something so strange and odd? Anyway, drop your comments down below and always stay curious, stay safe, and try to be graceful.